When my husband screamed, "Return every gift I ever bought you," during our divorce, I didn't argue. I simply nodded, turned around, and walked away. My silence terrified him more than anything I could have said. A week later, what he found waiting on his doorstep made his face go pale. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Lena, I'm 31 years old, and for a long time, I believed I had the perfect marriage. To everyone around us, Mark and I were the picture of success: a beautiful home, 2 cars, matching smiles in every photo. What people didn't see were the cracks beneath the surface, the subtle corrections, the small humiliations, the constant reminder that everything I had was because of him. I met Mark when I was 24, fresh out of college and working at a small design firm. He was charming, successful, and carried himself with that effortless competence that made you want to trust him. When he asked me out, I was flattered. When he said he loved me after 2 months, I was thrilled. And when he told me he'd take care of me forever, I believed him. At first, it felt like a dream. He showered me with gifts, jewelry, vacations, even a brand new car. He'd say things like, "You deserve the world, Lena." But it wasn't long before those words twisted into something darker. The first time I tried to buy something for myself, a small painting for my office, he laughed. "Why waste your money when I already provide for you?" he said. I remember laughing it off, telling myself he just wanted to feel needed. But over time, that need for control became suffocating. Every gift came with invisible strings attached. When he gave me a new dress, he chose the color, the size, the style. If I wore something else, he'd frown. "After all I give you, this is how you show appreciation," he'd ask, half joking, half resentful. It wasn't just about things. It was about me. He started deciding who I could see. My best friend, Erin, was too negative. My job was a waste of time. Eventually, I quit just to avoid another argument. The woman I was, independent, ambitious, full of ideas, slowly disappeared. And I told myself it was love. That every marriage had ups and downs. That he'd change once he wasn't so stressed. But the truth? Mark didn't want a partner. He wanted ownership. The first time he truly humiliated me was at a dinner party with his colleagues. I had spent hours preparing new dress, perfect makeup, rehearsing polite conversation. When someone asked about my work, I started to explain my design background, but Mark interrupted. "She plays around with colors," he said with a smirk. "I'm the one who pays the bills." Everyone laughed. My face burned, but I smiled anyway. That night, he acted like nothing happened. When I finally brought it up, he said, "Don't be dramatic. They were just jokes." That became his favorite phrase. Don't be dramatic. You're too sensitive. Stop overreacting. Each word chipped away at me until I stopped defending myself altogether. A year before the divorce, I caught him texting another woman, late at night, while he thought I was asleep. When I confronted him, he laughed in my face. "She's just a friend, Lena. You're paranoid." But he didn't even bother deleting the messages. And the next morning, he made sure to leave his phone where I could see the newest one: "Can't wait to see you again." Still, I stayed. Because I was tired, scared, and somewhere deep down, I thought maybe I deserved it. That's what emotional abuse does. It convinces you that leaving would be worse than staying. The breaking point came one afternoon in the lawyer's office. We were finalizing the divorce papers, and Mark was already smug, certain he'd get the house, the car, and most of the savings. When my lawyer mentioned that some assets were jointly owned, Mark slammed his hand on the table. "Everything in her life exists because of me," he shouted. "She can't even buy coffee without my money." The room went silent. Then he turned to me, his face red with fury. "If you want this divorce so bad, fine. But you're not walking away with what's mine. You return everything I ever gave you. Every necklace, every dress, every damn piece of furniture. Do you hear me?" I remember my lawyer shifting uncomfortably, waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I just looked at Mark, really looked at him, and saw the man he had become. Angry, bitter, desperate to feel powerful. So I smiled, just slightly, and said, "Okay." That single word made him falter. He expected me to cry, to plead, to fight. But I didn't. I gathered my papers, thanked my lawyer, and left. As I walked out of that office, something inside me clicked. Years of fear, guilt, and shame lifted all at once. It was quiet, but it was powerful. On the drive home, my hands were steady on the wheel. For the first time in years, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't second-guessing myself. All I could think was, he wants everything back. Fine. He'll get everything. That night, as I stood in the middle of our now half-empty bedroom, I looked around at all the gifts he'd used to keep me small: the glittering necklace, the designer bag, the wedding china we'd never used. Each one felt hollow now. But I also saw the real things he'd given me: anxiety, sleepless nights, the constant feeling of not being enough. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: calm. That was the night I started planning. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing: when Mark demanded I return everything he ever gave me, he thought he was winning. What he didn't know was that he'd just given me the perfect way to end it, on my terms, not his. As I turned off the lights and lay down, I whispered to myself, "You'll get everything you ever gave me, Mark. Every last piece." I didn't realize it then, but that night marked the beginning of my freedom and the start of his downfall. The morning after I left that lawyer's office, I woke up in my tiny new apartment. The air felt cold, unfamiliar, and strangely liberating. There were no footsteps echoing down the hallway, no voice barking orders or questioning why I was still in bed. Just silence, pure and honest silence. At first, it was terrifying. I didn't know what to do with so much quiet. I'd spent years walking on eggshells, timing every breath around Mark's moods. Now the space felt too big, too empty. But slowly, that emptiness began to feel like peace. I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I found a part-time job at a local art store, the kind of place I used to dream of working in before Mark convinced me it wasn't practical. The pay was small, but it was mine. Every time I cashed a check, I smiled to myself, remembering how he used to say, "You'd be nothing without me." Funny how wrong he was. At night, I'd sit at the little table by my window and go through boxes from my old life. Most were filled with reminders of what I'd endured: old bills, photos, notes from Mark apologizing after every argument. Every "I'm sorry" written in that familiar handwriting looked faker than the last. I almost threw them all away. But then I remembered his words, sharp and cruel: "Return every gift I ever bought you." Something inside me stirred. It started as a joke in my head. What if I really did? What if I gave him everything back, but not the way he expected? I laughed out loud at the thought. But then it hit me: this could actually work. It wasn't about revenge, not at first. It was about closure. About finally handing back everything that had hurt me, every piece of pain he'd gifted me, all neatly wrapped in cardboard and tape. The next day, I went to the hardware store and bought packing boxes. The clerk probably thought I was moving again. In a way, I was moving on. That night, I spread the boxes out across the living room floor. One by one, I started filling them. The first box was easy: all the jewelry he ever gave me. Every necklace, every ring, every shiny trinket he used to buy after a fight to smooth things over. They didn't sparkle anymore. They just looked cold. The second box was heavier: old receipts and bank statements. Evidence of the things he claimed were gifts, but that I secretly paid off with the grocery money he said I overspent. By the third box, my hands were trembling, not from sadness, but from power. It was as if with every item I packed, I was reclaiming a piece of myself. When I found the broken lamp, the one he smashed against the wall the night he told me I'd never survive without him, I stopped. I picked up one of the shards and held it under the light. It still had a faint mark where his hand had struck it. I wrapped it carefully in bubble wrap and set it inside a box labeled "Memories You Made." That one felt good. Over the next few days, the boxes multiplied. I filled them with more than just objects, I filled them with history. Old photographs of fake smiles, anniversary cards that meant nothing, the half-burned candle he said smelled too strong, even the cookbook he mocked me for using. But I wanted the final touch, something that would make him feel it. That's when I remembered the album. It was tucked in the back of one of the closets, still wrapped in tissue paper. A leather-bound photo album he had given me on our first anniversary. For all our memories, he'd written inside the cover. I sat down with it that night and started adding new pages. But instead of happy photos, I filled it with copies of the emails he sent to his mistress, the ones I had quietly saved. I added the printouts of our bank statements showing the money he spent on his business trips. And between them, I slipped in pictures from our early years, my smile slowly fading, his hand always gripping a little too tight. On the very last page, I wrote a note in thick black marker: "You can have it all back. I'm finally free." It was late when I sealed that box, but I didn't feel tired. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. A few days later, Erin came over. When she saw the mountain of boxes stacked by the door, her eyes widened. "Please tell me you're not actually moving back in with him," she said. I laughed. No, I'm just giving him what he asked for. She raised a brow. You're serious? Completely. When I told her my plan, she covered her mouth and then burst out laughing. Lena, this is brilliant. It's poetic. I grinned. I know. I just want him to understand this is what he gave me. All of it. We spent the rest of the night labeling the boxes. Some of the titles made her snort with laughter. Your kind of love. What you called mine. Broken promises handle with care. It felt therapeutic. Each label was a piece of closure, a little truth I'd never been brave enough to say out loud. By the end of the week, the boxes were stacked all the way up to the ceiling. My tiny apartment looked like a warehouse of broken memories. That Friday I rented a small truck. The man at the counter helped me load the boxes, joking that someone must have done me wrong. I just smiled. You could say that. The drive to Mark's house was strangely peaceful. The roads were empty, the sky clear. For years I had driven that same route trembling, afraid of what mood I'd find him in, but now my hands were steady on the wheel. When I pulled up to the house, the lights were off. It looked exactly the same as the day I left, perfect on the outside, hollow on the inside. I parked a truck right in front of his porch and started unloading the boxes, one by one. The sound of cardboard hitting the concrete echoed in the quiet street. I stacked them high, so high they nearly reached the porch light. When the last one was in place, I took a step back and looked at the mountain I'd built. Every bruise, every insult, every tear standing there in plain sight. I left the photo album on top, right where he'd see it first. As I turned to leave, I whispered to the night, "You wanted everything, Mark. Now you have it." Then I got into the truck and drove away, not looking back. For the first time in years, I didn't feel owned. I felt free. He'd wake up to find exactly what he'd demanded, everything he ever gave me. But what he didn't know yet was that in trying to take everything away, he'd given me something far greater. Myself. The next morning, my phone started vibrating before sunrise. At first, I ignored it. I'd slept deeper that night than I had in years, and for once, I wasn't waking up to anxiety clawing at my chest. But when the calls kept coming, 5 missed, then 6, I finally checked the screen. It was him. Mark. For a second, my stomach flipped the way it always used to, instinctively bracing for his anger. But then I caught sight of my reflection in the phone's black screen, calm, steady, unafraid. I smiled and put the phone face down. A minute later, a text came through, then another, then 5 in a row. "Lena, what the hell is this? Are you insane? You made a fool out of me. Come get this garbage off my porch. You think this is funny?" Oh, I thought, not funny, satisfying. Before I could even decide whether to reply, my best friend Erin called, her voice half panicked, half thrilled. "Lena, you're not gonna believe this. Your boxes, everyone in the neighborhood is talking about them. Apparently he came home late last night, saw the pile, and went ballistic." I leaned back against the pillow, grinning. "Let me guess, he started unpacking?" "Oh yeah. Right there on the porch. Neighbors said he was ripping boxes open, yelling your name like a maniac. And then," she paused dramatically, "then he found the album. That made me sit up. He saw it. Front and center. He opened it, and get this, he just froze. Like someone pulled the plug on him. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. It wasn't cruel, it was relief. All the pain, all the fear, it had finally shifted to him. "Lena," Erin said softly after a moment, "I think this is the first time I've ever heard you laugh like that." "Yeah," I said, wiping a tear from my cheek. "Because this time, he's the one facing the mess he made." A few hours later, I got a call from my lawyer. When I picked up, she was chuckling under her breath. "Well, that didn't take long," she said. "Mark's attorney just called. Apparently, your ex-husband would like to settle everything immediately. Full division of assets, no contest." I blinked. "You're kidding." "Not at all. He seems eager to close things out." Eager. That was one way to put it. When I hung up, I sat quietly for a long time. I thought about the years I'd spent trying to please him, trying to earn crumbs of respect. How I'd apologized for things I never did wrong, defended his behavior to friends, even convinced myself that his cruelty was just stress. And now, one week, one simple act of truth had crumbled his entire illusion of control. I wasn't proud in the loud, boastful way I imagined revenge would feel. No, this was something different. It was quiet, almost tender. Like healing. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk near the lake, the same one where Mark once told me I was lucky to have him because no one else would put up with me. The water was still that day, sunlight flickering across the surface. I closed my eyes and breathed in the cool air. That's when my phone buzzed again, this time, with a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Hall," a voice said when I answered. "This is Detective Marlowe from the county department. I just wanted to confirm you didn't authorize anyone to remove property from your former home, did you?" I frowned. "No." "Why?" He hesitated. "Well, your ex-husband's neighbors called in a disturbance this morning. Apparently, he was trying to throw the boxes into the lake behind his house. One of them broke open. Looks like there were some documents inside." "Oh," I said evenly. "Those must have been his." A pause. Then a faint chuckle. "Understood, ma'am. Have a good day." I hung up, biting back a laugh. Of course Mark couldn't handle the truth sitting on his doorstep. He had to drown it, the same way he'd tried to drown me in guilt for years. But the thing about truth, it floats. That evening, Erin came over with a bottle of wine. We sat out on my small balcony, the sunset painting everything in gold. She clinked her glass against mine. "To closure," she said. I smiled. "To peace." She studied me for a second. "So what happens now? You're finally free. What's next for you?" I thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe I'll start that art business I always wanted. Maybe I'll travel. But whatever I do, it'll be because I chose it." She nodded. "You know, you could write a book about this. How to return everything without saying a word." We both laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from deep in your chest, the kind that says it's over. The next day, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. But I knew that handwriting. I tore it open carefully. Inside was a single note written on lined paper. "Lena, you didn't have to humiliate me like that. You could have just asked for peace. Mark." I stared at the letter for a moment, then smiled faintly. He still didn't get it. It wasn't humiliation. It was accountability. I folded the note once and tossed it into the trash. Then I picked up my journal and began to write something I hadn't done since before I met him. The words flowed easily now. Sometimes silence is the loudest sound you can make. It echoes in places shouting never could. Days later, when I went to sign the final divorce papers, my lawyer handed me a folder. "He's agreed to your terms," she said. "You keep the house, the car, and full ownership of your business shares. He just wants this over." I nodded. "Perfect." As I walked out of her office, I felt like the world had expanded, like every step forward was a new beginning. And though I didn't need to, I took one last drive past Mark's house. The porch was empty now, but I could still imagine the look on his face that night, the shock, the fear, the realization that I was no longer under his control. I rolled down the window and whispered into the wind, "You wanted it all back, Mark. I just gave it to you." Then I drove off, music blasting, windows open, the air sweet with freedom. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, seals the last box, and walks away with its head held high. And that was exactly what I did. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. Trust me, more stories like this are coming, and you won't want to miss what's next.